Don't stop living because you have to support your wife or your husband. A lot of people go and they reduce their income or they quit their job. But those are the cases that you can easily show to the court that it's done in bad faith.
We talked about spousal support at first. Tell me what the most important thing about spousal support. If I'm a guy who doesn't want to pay my, you know, wife that I'm divorcing a lot of spousal support, what should I do?
One of my advice to my clients is don't stop living because you have to support your wife or your husband. A lot of people go and they reduce their income or they quit their job. But those are the cases that you can easily show to the court that it's done in bad faith. Um, Again, spousal support, there's a family code 4320 that goes through elements of it. But that's more whether or not one person can work, what's the level of their education or their health, and other elements that go through in calculation. Spousal support is basically allowing the out spouse to have the time and opportunity to get back on his or her feet. The court will look at a lot of elements as far as how long has it been since that spouse, the needy spouse, let's call that needy spouse, how long has it been since that needy spouse has worked? Can he or she get a job? Is there a job available? What's the level of that person's education? And if that person is willing to go to school and make him or herself a better candidate for a job, how long does it take? And then the need of the person. Just because I had a lifestyle of a $10,000 a month, again, income of one household, now income for two households, um, the court will look at the income of the person and expenses of the person. And that is done by preparation of a form called income and expense declaration. Basically, the court tries to balance what one person needs versus what person's expenses are, looking at the person who has to pay, whether or not that person will maintain his or her own lifestyle as well.
You mentioned something about, you said Master. Explain to the folks what that is.
Master is a computer program that you plug in. It's calculated um, uh, based on cost of living, inflation, need of the person, need of the children, percentage of the custody, the deductibility, how much cash flow is left for you after you file your taxes or you pay your house payment. A lot of elements in there. You plug in your monthly expenses for both sides, and it automatically gives you a guidance as to what number should be the support, whether it's spousal support or child support. I had a case that my client was very upset because he felt that the money that he was going to pay as spousal support was after taxes. So, and since the new law says spousal support is not deductible and it's not taxable to the person receiving it, he was very upset. Now, this master has been modified to take that into consideration, even though spousal support is no longer taxable to the person receiving it and deductible to the person paying it. That factor has been calculated into this program. So yes, you are paying support, but it's considered after taxes because the program has that calculation in it.
Are there other, well, before I ask you that, I've actually seen the formula used, it's in the statute of how support is supposed to be calculated. So let's say you don't have Disomaster, or you don't have one of those other computer generated softwares. There's actually a longhand way to figure it out. It will take you hours, right? But there's an actual formula that's used. Did you know that?
I knew that, but I don't know the formula. But I
Right,
did.
neither do I. It's like a page or 2 pages long.
But there's a trick to it, which I tried to figure out. I haven't used it, so I don't remember the number. I tried finding out. I ran a Disomaster on my own one time, and I tried figuring out what percentage of one's income is normally considered for spousal support, and equal time 50-50 custody, what percentage was calculated for child support. I used to know it, but I don't.
Interesting. But you know what? It's always changing, and you're always getting updates and all that kind of stuff.
Always get an update. I use that formula when I run a Disomaster for a client who gets like bonuses or gets overtime or some lump sums. I normally calculate my way, of course, what percentage is for child support, what percentage is from for spousal support, and then if we reach an agreement, I normally put down as long as as long as custody is 50-50, let's say 18.9% of your over your income shall be paid for the child support. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's the interesting part. Spousal support is higher than child support, so I'm sure it's a higher percentage.
Okay. Let's talk a few moments about custody and visitation, because it has a great impact on support, right?
Yes, of course.
What are the factors most judges look at, and what are the factors that most judges are supposed to look at?
At the end of the day, putting the law aside, as a parent, we always want the best for our children. That best we want for the children in court called best interest of the children. So on a human level, whether or not we're talking about any laws, we should always look into what's good for our kids. What does the court look at? I'm going to answer it like lawyers. Depends. It depends. If we have, for example, if we have parents and one parent is fighting for 50% custody, but he or she is not available to be with children or the child, the court will consider that. The court is not going to take the child away from one parent so the babysitter can take care of him or her. So that's one of the factors the court looks at. The other factor is how long one parent has been involved in that child. How old is the child? Are we going to give a 3-month-old baby who's being breastfed to 50-50 parents? No, it's just not doable. It's not good for the kid. It's not to the kid's best interest. So mainly based on cases, the court will look into what's in the best interest of that child. How should the court decide on the custody to be the best for that child?
But are there any specific factors they look at? Do they look at income? Do they look at what kind of home I have? What they must look at something very specific, because what does best interest mean anyway?
Okay, best interest means that the child will be raised as a normal child. So what other factors the court will look at? The court will look at to see whether that child has his or her own bed, whether that child has safety, whether that child will be taken to school on time. I mean, again, it depends. Is it to the best interest of the child to sleep with mom? No, of course not. So these are the factors. It all depends how one's life is. Money has nothing to do with custody. Money has nothing, because a lot of clients think, well, if I don't have money, does that mean I'm going to lose custody? Money has nothing to do with custody. Just because you don't have money, of course, at some point both of you were living in the same house, decided to have a child, and there was enough money to support. Now that support is going to be divided, as I said, into two households. If you needed $100 for milk per week, now that you're going to have 50% of the time, you need 50%, you need $50. So that's where the calculation of a DISO master had taken into consideration. That's why the income, the percentage of the custody is important.